Welcome back to our daily Living Jewish Kitzur Shulchan Aruch class. We are up to section 75 of the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, which speaks about the laws of candle lighting Shabbos candles, and when Shabbos begins, which is quite an important one. Before we start, we'll take a quick peek at where we're up to in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. We are learning the laws of Shabbos, and within Shabbos, we've learned about the holiness of Shabbos and preparing. We've learned about giving a job to a non-Jew before Shabbos. We've learned about embarking on a ship, and now it's time to learn all about candle lighting. Let's take a look. No, not yet. Let's do this again. Also, that's 1 moment. Here we go. Just taking care of some logistical stuff. We're ready to start in just a few seconds. Okay. So every person must put all work aside and light the Shabbos candles at least a half hour before the stars come out. That's an interesting description, 30 minutes before the stars come out. Well, let's take a look at when that would be this coming Friday night. In Johannesburg. This coming Friday night, the stars will come out at 6:45. 30 minutes before 6:45 would be 6:15. 6:15 is only 6 minutes before sunset. So that's pretty late. Generally, the time to light Shabbos candles is 18 minutes before sunset. So as you see over here, this coming Friday, sunset will be at 6:21. So actually a few different opinions when exactly sunset is, meaning at what exact point do we say that the sun has set. And that's why you'll sometimes see differences between different calendars as far as what time Shabbos comes in. The Shabbos will always come in 18 minutes before sunset. Over here, yeah, he just says at sea level. He doesn't mention the other opinions of sunset over here. But 18 minutes before sunset would be 6:03. Now the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch says you've got to light at least 30 minutes before the stars come out. So he's talking about in a place maybe where you don't know what time candle lighting is, but you do know what time the stars come out. But practically speaking, there are many different opinions when exactly we calculate the onset of Shabbos. So today, 21st century, the generally universally accepted opinion is that we light candles 18 minutes before sunset. And if we didn't, we have up until sunset to light the candles. But at 6:21, it is too late to light the Shabbos candles. So practically speaking today, if you knew when the stars came out, you would light your Shabbos candles 30 plus 18, 48 minutes before the stars come out. You see a whole lot of opinions over here. At what point do we say the stars have come out? 6:44, 6:45, 36, 48, 50, 55. which by the way is why, if you look, I'll show you something interesting. Let's get rid of these added times. Show defaults gone in. If you look at this coming Friday, it says that Tzeisak Echavim nightfall is at 6:45. If you look at the next day, which is Shabbos, it says that nightfall is when? Well, when does Shabbos end? 6:54. That's 9 minutes later. Why is that? Because there are different opinions of when exactly it's considered like the stars have come out. And since Shabbos is a very serious thing, it's something that you would never want to violate. So we follow the more stringent opinions of waiting till 6:54. I think that this is according to Chabad.org. And different communities have slight variances. I think the UOS is generally 3 minutes earlier than the Chabad.org times when Shabbos goes out. So that means the UOS will say Shabbos goes out at 6:51. And now you can understand why. It's because there are all these different calculations at what point the stars come out. Is it 3 medium stars, which is 23 degrees after sunset? Or is it 24 minutes and degrees after sunset, 26 minutes, 28, 30, 36, etc. Then Rabbeinu Tam is a more strict opinion. Some people actually don't take out Shabbos until about 40 minutes later. They say that's when it's considered fully night. But generally, the general consensus is that we don't follow Rabbeinu Tam as far as the beginning and end of Shabbos. So that was just giving a little bit of context. The Kitzur Shulchan Aruch says he needs to light the candles at least 30 minutes before the stars come out. And we've seen now that sunset is about 26 minutes before the stars come out. And we light candles 18 minutes before that. But that is provided that the community did not take in Shabbos early. If, however, the shul already recited the section called Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbos, let us sing a song for Shabbos, which comes just after the Lachad Odi. So with those words, the shul formally accepts Shabbos. So what that means very practically is if you look at a UOS calendar, you're actually going to see that it does not say that Shabbos comes in. Well, nowadays it's already in the midsummer months. So sunset could be as late as 7 p.m. or later, which means that 18 minutes before that would be around 6:45. The UOS calendar does not say that candle lighting time is 6:45 for the simple reason that many communities in Johannesburg bring in Shabbos early. Hashem gives us the ability to bring in Shabbos early and that way add from the mundane to the holy and to take out Shabbos late. So in Great Park Shul, for example, they never they never start the Kabbalah Shabbos, welcoming in Shabbos later than 6 p.m., which means that by 6:15 approximately, they finish Lachad Odi and they're up to Mizmor Shir L'Yom HaShabbos. So what that means practically is that although sunset today is only at, I think we said 6:21, so we need a person should light candles 18 minutes before that, and at the very latest by 6:15, because by 6:15 the community has already brought in Shabbos. That's if you're part of the Great Park community. If you're part of another community that brings in Shabbos later, then you have more time. And there's actually a little bit of discussion in the Shulchan Aruch. If somebody doesn't go to shul, does he need to follow his community, or maybe you could just follow what the majority of people in the city are doing? I think the consensus is that you can follow what the majority of the people in the city are doing. And on that, there's an interesting discussion. When we speak about the majority of the people of the city, do we mean the majority of people of the city that are keeping Shabbos, or do we mean the majority of all the Jews of the city, regardless of whether or not they're keeping Shabbos? Logically, I would think that it's the majority of people that are keeping Shabbos, because if they're not keeping Shabbos, or if they're not, I guess no. Or do you say majority of people that are lighting Shabbos candles in the right time? Either way, these are all different interesting discussions, but based on the demographics of which communities bring Shabbos in earlier, like Great Park, and which communities don't, like Torah Academy. So you would then look at the majority of all of Johannesburg Jewry, and based on that, if you're not going to shul, that could affect whether you need to bring in Shabbos earlier, or you could bring in Shabbos later, provided it's still 18 minutes before sunset. Have I confused you? Have I lost you?
Rabbi, can I ask you a question?
Please.
What happens if your whole family walks to shul? So shul starts, let's say, at 6 o'clock, and it's too early to light candles. By the time you leave home, let's say it takes you 20 minutes to walk to shul. So you leave home at 20 to 6. Too early to light the candles, and by the time you walk home, it'll be too late. So
that's a great question. So interestingly, 6 o'clock is not too early to light the candles. Let's take a look back at the calendar. The earliest time that a person can light the Shabbos candles is Plag HaMincha. Plag HaMincha is approximately an hour and a quarter before sunset.
Okay.
If you look at today, Plag HaMincha is at 5:11. Okay, so that means this coming Friday night, it's only getting earlier. So anytime from 5:11, you could already light the Shabbos candles.
Okay.
So you would definitely light before you leave, because once Shabbos begins, you're actually breaking Shabbos by trying to keep it, and you certainly wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah.
And now that said, here's a different scenario. If you're not walking to shul, but you're actually driving to shul, because it's not Shabbos yet. And then what you'll do is you'll leave your car in shul, you'll park it in shul for the whole duration of Shabbos. And then you'll walk back to shul towards the end of Shabbos, and then you'll drive it home after Shabbos, or you'll go pick up the car later. So there's no need to walk to shul on a Friday night, as long as you're going before Shabbos begins.
Yeah.
Which typically you would do, because you would go already for mincha, which is a few minutes before. So the question is, once you light Shabbos candles, then you welcome in the Shabbos, then it means it's already Shabbos for you. Lighting the Shabbos candles brings Shabbos into your life, into your home, and it becomes Shabbos for you. So the question is, would you be allowed to light Shabbos candles if you're planning on driving to shul while it's still light outside? And the answer is that if it's a woman that's doing this, so women by default do accept Shabbos when they light the Shabbos candles, unless they stipulate beforehand, unless they actually make a stipulation before they light the candles, and they say that, tonight I'm not going to walk to shul, I'm going to drive to shul, and therefore tonight I'm not accepting Shabbos with my candle lighting. I'm only going to accept Shabbos once I reach shul. So a woman can do that on occasion. Generally, it's a woman that lights the Shabbos candles, and generally when she lights the Shabbos candles, she accepts Shabbos. But she can make an exception occasionally, not to make it into a common practice, to stipulate that she's not accepting Shabbos until she finishes driving to shul. This would also be if somebody maybe is moving into somebody else for Shabbos, if they're moving into somebody for Shabbos, then they would light at their destination. Whatever the scenario is, if it's a scenario where for a woman decides she wants to drive to shul before Shabbos starts, then she will light the candles before she goes. This is a very practical question. This applies to anybody that is driving to shul before Shabbos, which pretty much applies to many women that are coming to shul on a Friday night. We won't speak about how they get home, but that's irrelevant right now. We're talking about how they're getting to shul. They're getting to shul by car, and they have a mitzvah to light candles. So what do? So the answer is, when they light the candles, they should stipulate that they're not yet accepting Shabbos with the candle lighting. As long as the candle lighting is at the right time from Plag HaMincha, which this time of year is at around 5:15 p.m. or after that, she could light the Shabbos candles, she could make the bracha, have in mind that she's not yet accepting Shabbos, And when she comes to shul, then she accepts Shabbos. A man, since it's generally the woman's job to light Shabbos candles, so not the man, if it is the man that's lighting Shabbos candles, if, for example, one's wife is away, or one doesn't have a wife, then the man by default accepts Shabbos not by the candle lighting. Actually, it's a little different. Maybe if he doesn't have a wife, it's different. But if a person's wife usually lights Shabbos candles, but now she's away, so since by default he doesn't accept Shabbos by the candle lighting, rather he accepts Shabbos when he gets to shul. So even if he didn't stipulate, we go by the assumption that he's not yet accepting Shabbos by the candle lighting, and then he'll still be able to drive to shul and then accept Shabbos once he gets there. Is that clear? Right. He mentions that once the community says that passage right after the Lachadodi, then they accept Shabbos upon them. The Shulchan Aruch actually says that it's not so much about the words per se, it's more about what the community has in mind. And the Shulchan Aruch says that actually in European countries nowadays, this is speaking a few hundred years back, even when they say Misbashir L'Yeva Shabbos, let's sing a song for Shabbos, they haven't yet accepted the Shabbos, the community. We're obviously talking about when it's being said in advance of sunset. Rather, when they actually say Baruch Hu, Baruch Hu es Hashem Vayrach, when they say those words, then according to all opinions, they've accepted Shabbos because they've begun the night's prayers, they've begun the evening prayers. And by saying, beginning the evening prayers, Ma'ariv Arabim, Hashem who brings evening, so one is clearly necessarily accepting Shabbos at that point. So just to clarify, once the community accepts Shabbos at Shabbos, so they do so either from saying Mizvah Shiriyeh B'Shabbos, or a few minutes later when they reach Baruch Hu. And this is even if it's a long time before the sun actually sets. So once the community does so, then it becomes binding even on the minority, and they are forbidden to do any manner of work. So as I've said, if you belong to Great Park Shul, then the moment Shul 6:15 comes along, it is Shabbos for you. You can't say that I am going to bring in Shabbos later, even though sun sets only at 7 p.m., because the minority follows the majority. And as I mentioned before, if you're staying home, then there is debate whether you have to follow your shul or you can follow the majority of the people in the city. But in summary, if you go to shul at a shul that does accept Shabbos early like Great Park, then it means candle lighting, or Shabbos begins 6:15 latest, when the shul starts at 6 o'clock and takes them about 15 minutes till they reach Baruch Hu. Okay. Even somebody who arrives from another city is obliged to observe the laws of Shabbos as soon as the congregation has said Mizvah Shiriyeh Shabbos. So even if you're a guest, if there are two shuls, one is not bound by the other. So you can have different shuls. You certainly do have different shuls in Johannesburg that each accept Shabbos in their own times. Again, this is when it's in advance of sunset. This relates to the summer months where the sun is setting late. So the shuls are bringing in Shabbos early. But obviously in the winter months, if the sun is setting early, generally communities are not bringing it in much earlier than that. It would be 18 minutes before sunset. Okay. So far we've discussed, when to light Shabbos candles. See, we're out of time. Tomorrow night is Purim, so we're not going to have a shir, neither on Purim day. Please God, wishing you all a freilich and a joyful Purim, and I look forward to seeing you, please God, next week, Monday at 5 o'clock.